Hi guys, this is probably your first time um, using Tinkercad, and the whole idea is to walk you through a couple of like tips and tricks, and maybe kind of like the graphical user interface of this really cool app works. So Tinkercad is a 3D software from Autodesk where you can create and invent anything you want in 3D. Also, there is a module for circuits and simulations that you can use later on. So before we start, you're going to click on Login, and you are going to select Student with Class Code. We have previously created a class. Your teacher created a class and had the class code, and it will take you to that class, and it will also ask for um, for a nickname. After you have those two IDs or that information, you will be able to log in to Tinkercad. Okay, once you're in Tinkercad, this will be your main page, and on the left you have a couple of options. You will probably not have classes because you're not a teacher, but in your case, you will have on the right the Create button. Here, you will click on 3D Design, where we will start creating um, our objects. Okay. Now, the first thing you need to understand is that you have a work plane where you are going to drop or you're going to create all your objects. On the left, you have a view, and this little cube, you can rotate it. So you click and drag so you can change and modify the view. Okay? You can also zoom in, you can also zoom out, and you can always press the home button or the home view so it takes you back to the original view. Something that you want to do is that you want to set up the size of your canvas or the size of your work plane. Right now, on the bottom right, if you click on settings, you will see that the units are metric. You can also have imperial, where you can work in inches, or bricks, even if you want to work with Lego. So in metric, we're going to choose millimeters, and we're talking about a 20 by 20 work plane. I think this is enough because our 3D printer doesn't go beyond that size. So let's keep it there, and our snap grid is the, the length between each of these little boxes that you see over here. Okay, so click on the home so we can go back to the original view, and let's learn a little bit about the basics. On the right, you're going to have all different like preset objects that you can use, but you can also modify their length, their width, and their height. There are also different shapes, and you can even look for shapes. If you click on the search button, you can look for already pre-made, like complete objects. Okay, so let's start creating, or let's drop down a cube. Now this cube has different sizes. If you zoom in and you click on those white squares, you can see the height, you can see the width, and you can see the length. Okay, so we're going to create a floor, like a floor. Where we're going to put all the different objects that we just learned about. We're going to put the nucleus. We're going to add the ribosomes. We're going to add the like how we're going to represent DNA, and then how it will finally like those ribosomes create the proteins, and then those proteins will be encapsulated or they will have a different shape in order to kind of like determine the trait um, of these organisms. So you guys are the experts. I'll just show you how the tools work. So I'm going to change the height of this box. I'm going to click on the white square and I'm going to change it for maybe 2 millimeters. I'm going to use 2 millimeters. I'm going to press enter. And then the width and the height, I'm going to change it to kind of like 100. by 100. Let's see. Now I can also like zoom and pan, like I can move this around. And here where I see this, I'm going to click on these. I'm going to change it by 100 to 100. So now I have kind of like a bigger, like this is going to be our floor. I'm going to change this floor. I'm going to change the color to maybe a lighter color so I can see it easier. And this is going to be a floor where I am going to represent the different things. Okay, now you guys, since you're the experts, you know how to represent the nucleus, which is going to be like, and then the city vault where you have the chromosomes and you have the genes and all that inside your cell. Okay, now this is a creativity kind of like analogy of what it really. So you really need to understand how things work. Well, in my case, according to the story or according to the analogy, kind of like the nucleus, let's say that the cell is this squared box that you can actually change and maybe change it for a cylinder because it looks more like a cell. So in that case, you can change this to maybe a cylinder, and this cylinder you can also change the height and then also change the width and the length. Okay. And basically, now if you think that this looks more like a cell, then you can leave it like this and start creating everything inside it. Then you have, okay, where's going to be that nucleus? And then the nucleus can be kind of like a dome if you want. You can put a dome right here where this dome has like a different size and shape. And since, I mean, organisms are not like perfectly symmetrical, it doesn't matter if your nucleus is right in the middle. But you can make it right in the middle if you want. Okay, you can have it right in the middle. You can select one object and then press the shift button on your keyboard and select another object, and then just on the top right you can click on align and you can align these objects. Okay, you can align these objects on these little black dots. So when they are aligned, they will be in gray. So now you have an aligned object. Okay. But maybe some of you decide, look, this is not like the nucleus. I want it to be something else. And so we talked about like it's like a building, and that building holds a vault, and that vault holds all the information of the DNA and kind of like all the important information how of your genes, right? So in that case, if you want something a little bit more complex, you can look for maybe buildings on the top right on the search key, and there are buildings or building, and let's say you decide to put a building here, okay? And now you have a building, which is going to represent probably the nucleus. And let's say that in here you have that bookshelf, um, and that bookshelf holds the DNA, the information, kind of like those chromosomes and DNA are the cookbook that you guys were talking about earlier. And let's say DNA, we're going to look for a DNA, and let's see if a DNA kind of like works here. And then when you download objects that are preset or pre-established, you really need to modify their size, okay? So kind of like you need to modify the size and maybe make them a lot smaller so that way you can actually put them in. Now, I'm going to put them inside the building, which is something that I want to do, okay? So maybe you want to do like DNA, and you can find other shapes that probably represent that DNA, okay, and the chromosomes. And after you have this, remember that the nucleus will release all those ribosomes. And you can determine how a ribosome looks like, maybe with a very simple shape. Okay, it can be a very simple shape, or it can be a character. Like it depends up to you. Like this is a very creative, and you will be able to explain why they look this way or the other, and how they're going to build the different proteins and how you're going to build the proteins. So the whole point of this is that you use your creativity to really understand and present and explain to others how we get our traits, how we get blue eyes, how we get dark hair, how our color, our skin color. So that represents every single trait. It's because it is inserted into our code. Okay, and you're gonna have tons of shape. The whole point is that you guys play around with the basic shapes. There are letters. Remember that you guys will probably use different letters, which are the nucleides, um, which is A, C, G, and T, and what they represent. Okay, the more specific, the more details that you have, the easier will be for you to explain them later on. Okay. Anyway, we'll still like meet and we will work this during this session. If you need any help, we will be around to help you with your model. Hopefully, you get to print the model and present it. Okay, guys? See you next time.